Hey guys, it's Smudge here, and I'm back. We're back. Yep, we're in DCS again. Now, it's been a little while. It's been about a month since I last did a video. So I've been meaning to do one for a little while, but I've been a little busy. And I might actually have a little bit of a talk at the end of this video about kind of what I've been doing for the last month, and maybe see if I can get a little bit of help from you guys that watch this video. But again, I'll talk more about that at the end. So today I wanted to kind of take a look at an aircraft that I've not looked at previously, which is the C101 EB. Now this is the Aviojet. It's still very much in early access. It's running on a standard flight model, which means that it's well, it's not affected by physics realistically. It does have some physics characteristics, but it's more along the lines of kind of Microsoft Flight Sim than probably what most people are used to in DCS. It's definitely not kind of advanced as things like the A10 or the MiG-21 or the MiG-15, things like that. You know, it's very easy to fly because of its flight model. But what it really has going for it is its technical complexity. Now, because this is in early access, certain things are still quite buggy. You know, you have to kind of expect that with an early access aircraft like this. So what we're going to have a look at is the startup procedure, and hopefully we'll get this thing to work. We'll take off. Then what I want to do is kind of have a little talk about formation flying, which is something that I think I'm proficient at. It's something I enjoy doing, and really what I want to do is kind of share some tips with you guys in the community, and you know, kind of maybe help you guys out. You know, someone that may be struggling with formation flying, maybe give you some pointers that to help you along the way. Right, so the first thing that we're going to do is close the canopy, because starting this thing up gets really loud, and I mean stupidly loud. So the first thing that we need to do is kind of generate power, get power into the aircraft. And one thing that's quite cool about this is that it comes with its own GPU, or ground power unit. I set an AI to take off, who we're going to be flying in formation with later. So that's oops, just as my thing's a bit wobbly, that's him just taking off now, so we'll just watch him depart. My track IR profile is just a little bit off at the moment. It gets a little bit wobbly, but just make sure he successfully departs, because I'm going to need him later on. And up he goes. Up he goes. Up he goes, and yeah, he's up. Okay, cool. Right, let's crack on anyway. So yeah, this thing comes with its own GPU, or ground power unit, and you need to set your options for this in the controls, or at least go through the controls and make sure that you have options set for things like the ground power unit and things like that. Now I've set it to the J key because the J key wasn't doing anything else, and when you turn it on, you get this like aircraft generatory thing kind of plugs itself in, which is actually really quite cool. It's the first aircraft that's kind of done anything like this, you know, with having kind of auxiliary things coming and going. So as you can see there, we've got a little green GPU light on saying that the GPU is plugged in, but what we actually need to do is press that button. Then you hear the RPMs change to actually start drawing power from the GPU. Then as you can see, some more lights and things have started coming on. So the next step is to turn on the battery, and then turn on the aircraft generators, and oops, clear the master caution, and then turn on the bus, or DC bus tie-in. So what that is, like an inverter, I suppose. And then we actually have the inverter here, which we tap into normal, and then there's power coming into the aircraft. Now this here's the master caution, that makes really loud annoying noises, and then you've got like a general caution thing here, which is when you're over G'ing or you're stressing the aircraft, you get this caution, and when you start doing things really wrong, this caution kicks off. So that's quite handy. There is an autopilot kind of thing here where you've got heading, altitude holds, approach holds, things like this, but I can't get that to work, which is a little bit annoying. Maybe it's not implemented yet, I don't know. Anyways, the next step is to turn on the fuel pumps. You've got 4 of them for the wing tanks and for the fuel tank, well, central tanks, and then you've got cut-off switches there for the fuel pumps, or engine fuel valve cut-offs anyway. So at the moment the aircraft's powered, it's got ground power coming in, we've switched on the fuel tank kind of pumps. Now the next thing to do, this you need a set of keybind to as well, is to move the throttle into the, in fact no, that comes later actually. It's been a while since I've flown this aircraft. What we actually need to do is start the engine turbines going, and then we do that by pressuring this switch here. And then as the turbine starts spinning, then we move the throttle out of the idle position into the, out of the off position into the idle position. Get this right, I tell you. And then that should fire up the engine, so let's do that now. So we press or put the engine into start mode, and then this is the engine RPM gauge, which you start seeing climbing here. And then we move the throttle out of idle into, out of off into idle. Fuck me. And then that should be the engine kicking into gear, which it is, which is cool. And then we'll just wait for that to spool up. And the canopy's down, so what we can do then is seal the canopy by moving that handle forwards. And then we can go around it and turn on lights as required, external lights. We can turn on the oxygen system and the ventilation systems, which is all down here. And then you've got radio controls, which you can turn on here and here for UHF, VHF, all that type of good stuff. And then you've got a radio panel up here as well that you control with these. And then you can turn it on. There you go, wrong button. There you go. So that's kind of like the radio set, but we're not really going to kind of be tuning in with those today because it's just not really required. Okay, so that looks like the engine's all idled and good, so that's fantastic. And then I hope that's kind of everything as it should be. The instruments are just finishing their alignments, which is good. And then this is the part where it always kind of gets me, because sometimes I switch off the GPU generator and the aircraft just freaking kills itself, and other times I switch it off and it seems to be absolutely fine. So I think all the switches there are right, so let's try this anyway and hope it doesn't kill itself. Cool, so that's the GPU generator off, and then we'll disconnect that thing and then it should disappear. And then that's us cool and groovy and good to go. So before this thing switches itself off, let's taxi on out, and then we'll go catch up with our other aircraft and then do some formation flying. Now, because like I said earlier, this thing's on an SFM or a standard flight model, battery isolation switch thing. Just clearing off the generator warning there, so that's fine. Yeah, because this thing's on a standard flight model, the physics are a little bit odd, and when it's on the ground you can almost rally this thing. It kind of it kind of goes everywhere, and there's no kind of penalty for that. But when they release the advanced flight model, things will definitely change. This will require a hell of a lot more learning. So as you can see, that there's just something coming in on final there, so we might need to hold short here while we wait for that thing to land. This is normally why you need to tune into the radios. Now, one thing I do love is that it has a mirror, but the mirror is very wonky. It's almost like the mirror should be here, but they've put it here, but it's also kind of put everything on a slant as well. So generally we'll just kind of turn that thing off and leave it alone. So we'll just taxi out to the end of the runway here and then hold. And then we've got an aircraft coming in on finals there if we just have a look out. Oops, bit wobbly on the old track IR here. There we go, we'll just steady it out. And then we've got a C-17 just coming in on finals. Now if I'd remembered what the radio station was for this airfield, I'd programmed that in, but program it in, fucking hell. And then we'd probably hear the tower and the C-17s and everything else talking in the area, but you know, it just gets annoying listening to all of the other stuff talking when you're trying to do commentary, so we'll just leave that as it is. Even though I could probably taxi out and take off before he comes down, but that's not very nice. Oops, in fact, is he waving off? He's either waving off or he's about to die. AI for the win. Where's he going? Oh well, hey, AI for you. Anyways, while he's waving off, let's taxi out and take off. Don't hit the helicopter. That would have been incredibly funny. Alrighty. Cool, so all looking cool and groovy, so let's throttle up here. And then we'll take off. No flaps are required, just power it up and head on out. So it really doesn't take much to get this thing airborne. Again, even with the flight model, as soon as you hit 150 knots there, you're pretty much good to go. So this is us climbing up quite nicely. Turn on a mirror to have a look behind you there as well, but again, with it being wonky, and everything else that you kind of see behind you ends up being wonky as well, so it's a very strange thing. That now, one thing I do like about this is the sound. Is quite authentic. You get a lot of kind of wind noise, especially the faster you go. Everything starts kind of rushing past the canopy, which is not something that you get in any of the other aircraft. So, you know, this. Even though this is a very simple aircraft at the moment, it has a lot of special things going on there. You know, a lot of things that kind of separate it away from the other aircraft in the sim so far. So, you know, this is an aircraft I'm very much kind of excited to follow the development as it goes. You know, and even though it isn't a standard flight model at the moment, it's not as advanced as what it nearly could be. It is still quite cool. So handling characteristics of the C-101, again being a light training aircraft or an early jet trainer, it is incredibly forgiving. It rolls really well, it turns really well. So we'll just come up over the top here. And being on an SFM, you don't need to worry about physics that much. It doesn't bleed speed that much. Again, just G warning coming off there, but nothing to fret about. Yes, I know. Just hitting about 4G there, and then that's when the warning comes off. Now I'll show you something about the SFM. You know, something about the type of flight model. So if I go full throttle here and then I just pull up, we'll start bleeding off speed slowly, which is kind of to be expected. It's what happens with jets. But then as the speed starts coming down to about 100 here, we'll keep my nose, so I'm at full throttle here with the nose up, and then I'll just kind of keep the stick all the way back, and then the alarm starts going off. But if we go external, you find that the aircraft will just kind of sit there with the nose up. In fact, if I put the bar down at the top here, you can see that we're actually still kind of climbing, where you know, I'm just yanking back on the stick, we're doing 120 knots, and it won't kind of go any lower than that. And yeah, it's just generally still climbing. So, you know, standard flight models for the win. And it's just kind of quite happily just stood there, even though this aircraft definitely wouldn't have enough power to kind of do that sort of flight. Just, you know, a normal aircraft at this point would be departing, you know, the physics would be kind of pulling the airframe to bits right now, but hey, I'm still going up. So that's kind of like the standard flight model. It's got physics, but it's not great physics. Okay, so we'll just shut off the warning there. Alrighty, so that's... okay, thank you very much. It's just generally telling me to stop pushing the aircraft so hard. So what we'll do is that we'll pause this here, and I'm going to go find that guy that took off earlier, and then we'll talk a little bit about formation flying. So we'll catch you in just a little bit. Okay guys, so here we are. We've managed to kind of catch up with the guy I want to be flying formation with. So what we're going to do here is kind of get up to him and then try and maintain a close formation. So tips to formation flying. Let's list these, I suppose. So the first tip I can give, and it is probably one of the most important, is to get your trims right. Because if your aircraft isn't trimmed out right and you're fighting to keep your plane flying straight, then you're going to have a hellish time trying to stay in formation with someone. So, you know, get the trim straight so that you can, you know, just fly the aircraft with just the slightest amount of touch. And then once you kind of got the aircraft flying straight and level comfortably, then you can start moving in for a formation. So I'm coming in a little bit hot here, so I'm just going to hit my brake, which has caused that really annoying alarm to come on. So that's now brought us down to about the same sort of speed. So tip number 2 is get a good picture. And what I mean by that is reference points. So with reference points, what you want to do is put an aircraft in a certain point of your cockpit. So let's say if I want to keep him there in between my dashboard and the canopy frame, then I might not be in sort of like an ideal kind of fingertip position, but if I keep him there, and I can maintain that sort of position just by moving the aircraft up, down, left and right, then I know that you know, I'm going to be maintaining position once I've got him there in that part of the cockpit. And then start slightly further away, and then as you start getting more comfortable with how he's flying, that's when you can start moving in or edging in just a little bit closer. And then this is when tip 3 comes into play. And with tip 3 is try to keep the same azimuth as the aircraft that you're following. And what I mean by that is try to keep your wings at the same level as him. So if he's wings level, keep your wings level, and if he starts turning, then turn with him. But rather than rolling into him to maintain position and rolling out, you know, to get out of position, as you can see, that becomes quite sloppy. So if you keep the wings the same level as him, and then just use the rudder in order to maintain position, then life becomes much easier. So he's starting the left-hand turn here to turn back the way he was going. So I'm trying to keep my wings at the same sort of level as what he is, and I'm using my rudder in order to kind of maintain my position alongside him and maintain the picture in the canopy or in the canopy frame. And then by keeping him there and then maintaining that picture, then, you know, I'm able to kind of maintain a much smoother formation as I start kind of... I blipped my throttle a bit too much there, so, but that's okay, I can recover that. Now, in this part comes the next tip. Tip 5? I don't know, I've kind of lost count already, I can't count. Tip 5 is that, now this is a weird one as well, but it's that your controls never stop moving. You can't expect to maintain formation by not touching the controls. You're always manipulating the controls. The control stick, the rudder, the pedals, the throttle, everything's always moving. Now, it's something I struggled with initially, was that part of it. The realization that you always have to be moving the stick and rudder and pedals. And I saw a video of the Russian Knights display team, so like in cockpit. And from the outside and looking at the other aircraft about them, it all looked really smooth and they were maintaining beautiful formation. But then they showed a picture of the pilot's hand on the stick, and he was working it like a bad man. The stick was all over the place, he just wasn't stopping. You know, it's almost like he was churning butter. And I suppose the analogy is like a duck. It looks nice and graceful on the surface, but underneath is pedaling away like mad. And it's kind of the same with formation flying, is that, you know, in order to kind of maintain a decent formation, a close formation that looks good, you're always kind of manipulating the stick and the rudders and everything else. So you're working really hard in order to try and maintain that really kind of tight and close formation. And it's all about being smooth. You know, if you kind of exaggerate your controls, if you're hard on the controls, then you're always going to be kind of overcorrecting yourself, I suppose is the only way to put it, because you'll move the stick one way and then you'll think, oh crap, that's too much, and then you move it too much the other way, and then before you know it, you're all over the place. So it's just all about kind of like those very smooth, gentle inputs, you know, just mostly using the rudder. So try, like I said, to keep the wings on the same sort of level as the aircraft that you're following, and then just use your rudder and the power in order to kind of maintain your position and your picture. So I kind of want to risk going external here, but I'm probably not, so I'll probably kind of record this in post and then kind of put like a video, I don't know, in one of the corners of the screen. So if that pops up, I did that successfully. If it doesn't, then hell. You know, but yeah, that's formation flying. And I suppose the last tip I can give is just practice. You know, practice really does make perfect, and the more that you practice formation flying, the easier it is, and the more comfortable you get in order kind of staying closer and closer in formation to something. And this is just an AI on like a standard route following, so he's just kind of flying backwards and forwards, but it's great for training it. And then once you've actually get some friends who can come online and play with you, you know, trying to stay formation with another human's a completely different ballpark, because they'll naturally be flying all over the sky. So, you know, it kind of, it's like next level stuff in order trying to kind of stay in formation with them. So we'll just kind of change sides here, so we're just like a slight rudder input here and maintaining stick, so then we go from a kind of echelon position into a trail position. And then using the rudder again, we can just move off to the left hand side. And then, you know, just a little bit of power up in order to ease back up into position, but he's going to be making a turn soon to the left, so I don't really want to kind of maintain on this side when he's making a left hand turn. So staying on the outside of a known route or path is always kind of like the easier place to be. Didn't quite do that as smooth as I wanted to, but hey, you kind of get the picture. Suppose I'll never be a Red Arrows pilot. Again, that alarm's just coming off because I'm at minimum throttle. Just trying to maintain that position here. So I'll make one more turn and then we'll head back for a nice landing. Or, well, hopefully a nice landing. Again, working like a duck, trying to make it look smooth. Again, I don't want to get too close while we're maneuvering, because if he straightens out rapidly and then I don't catch it, we could end up colliding, and you know, that'd be bad. I mean, I'm only kind of like a few feet really away from his wingtip here anyway. Then you should be kind of straightening up soon. Oops. Again, all it takes is just the slightest wrong move with the rudder or the controls and you're all over the place, but with practice it's easy to try and recover that. And by flying formation like this, and once you get used to this, things like air-to-air refueling become much easier as well. So there are definite advantages in order to kind of practice formation flying. So there you go, you stand straight enough now, so we'll do the same. And that's formation flying. And you know, the C-101 is kind of a very good aircraft to practice your formation flying in, because as well as it being on an SFM, so it is kind of easier to handle. It's a very kind of direct aircraft. You know, it's very easy to kind of maneuver. So what we'll do here is that we'll power up, and then we'll head back. So I shit him up there, as you can see, broke away as we started getting a bit closer. I mean, and then there he is just below us. He'll be going back into his formation again soon. So what we'll do here is head back to the airfield, which should be over there somewhere, and then we'll come in for a nice landing. Airfield's just on the other side of that lump over there, if I remember rightly. So I might just cut this here just for a minute or so while we approach and get closer. Or I might not, I don't know. We'll see how it goes in post. But again, C-101's a very, very tidy aircraft. It really is, you know, it's kind of a very nice design. And it'd be nice to get kind of like the multi-seat thing going on there, maybe, you know. Maybe that'll come with DCS 2. Who knows? Maybe it will, maybe it won't. I don't know. It would be nice. And I much prefer this skin to the Spanish skin that comes with it, but that's just me. You know, Murica for the win. Maybe need someone to do a few British skins for this just to make it even better. But it is a very, very tidy model. It does look really very nice. And, you know, the developer are doing an absolutely sterling job with this so far. Okay, so here we go. We're starting to approach the airfield now. So what I'll do is start slowing down here. We're doing about 450 knots. And even though you can cancel the alarm with that, for some reason that booing noise keeps going on, which sucks. I'll need to find a button in order to silence that. I'm actually coming in a little bit high here, so I'll just start dipping down, but I've got the air brake out, which is that big flap underneath there, just to help slow us down. And then as we start going below about 200, we'll start lowering the flaps and the gears, and then we'll hopefully come for a nice landing. So just re-trimming the aircraft here, just as we're slowing down, so I'll start lowering a couple of notches of flaps in there, and then wait for the nose to balloon again. And then below 200 we'll start pulling down the undercarriage, that's the word. So again, that's us all dirty, flaps, undercarriage and air brakes out. So again, approach speed about 150 is good, and then we'll touch down probably at about 120, something like that. Although there is an aircraft there flying in front of us. I think that's a helicopter, which is handy. But again, visual landing here, you can program in things like ILS using the radios and systems down here, but that's for another day. So again, I keep the air brake out on landing just to help us slow down, because you'll find that when you start coming off the power, even if you don't have the air brake out, you won't slow down kind of fast enough. So again, start easing off on the power and flaring out here, and then just keeping the nose slightly up. And then what we'll do is that we'll just keep the nose back here for a little bit of aero braking coming down the runway. Oops, wrong button. And then there we go, the nose just kind of gently comes down now when we get to about 50 knots. Now we start tapping in the brakes, which has a very weird effect on the compass. That's quite funny. Maybe you guys can see that there, so whenever I tap the brakes, the compass changes. That's quite cool. But hey, it's early access, you know, what can you expect? I'll put the taxi lights on. And the taxi lights are quite cool. As you can see, they fold down from underneath the wing there, and then they turn on. But again, I suppose once this goes to advanced flight models, you'll need to tuck those away as you're starting to fly, otherwise that could cause a few more problems. Again, just braking here, and then we'll turn off the short taxiway. And then we'll bring this to a rest here. And then what we'll do is that we'll power off the engine, hit the master caution, and then we'll turn off the battery. And then if we unpressurize and then unhook the canopy, by the time that the engine spools all the way down, one thing I do like, let's just take a second. It might not do it because of where we're parked, but it should do. Yep, there we go. So chucks, ladder, and helmet off. A nice little animation there just to finish with. So yeah, I hope that you've enjoyed this video. It's definitely something very different, this aircraft, you know. It's quite cool, and it definitely kind of be interesting once the second version of this comes out with the weapon loadouts and things like that. And then when the AFM comes along, this will be so much fun. It really will. So I'm just going to leave this here for now, and then we'll have a little bit of chat about what I've been doing for the past month. So thank you very much, and talk to you in a sec. Hey guys, so I hope that you enjoyed that video. Now what I'm going to do is just talk for a few minutes here about kind of what I've been doing over the past month or couple of months. Now my partner and I run a non-profit charity called For the Good Friends Rescue, and what we do is that we rescue dogs from death camps. Now that does sound pretty ominous, but it's kind of what they are. Now, over in Europe, countries like Spain, a lot of dogs are used as working dogs. So they're used for hunting and flushing and things like this. And when they pass their usefulness to the guys that use them, one of three things happen. Either the dog's killed, usually by being hung from trees, they're either dumped on the street, or they're put into death centres where they're generally kind of kept for a little while and then they're put down. Now the conditions that these dogs are held in are sometimes atrocious. You know, you wouldn't want to keep your worst enemy in some of the conditions that these dogs are held in. And what we do is that we take these dogs out of these pounds, we find them homes in the UK, in Europe, or wherever we can. We get them checked out by vets and professionals, make sure that, you know, they're healthy. They're then normally put into foster, where they're brought back to a fit state where they're fit enough to travel, and then they go on to their next home. And that's kind of what we've been doing. or at least what I've been doing over the past few months is helping rescue some of these dogs. And we've rescued a few recently, some Dalmatians and some pointers that we've been involved in directly. Now, sometimes we get other people to kind of do transportation and fostering and things like that, but we've been doing a lot of that ourselves, which is kind of what's been keeping us busy as well as kind of normal regular work stuff and looking after the family. Now, the reason I'm talking about this is because we need help. We need more donations. Now, the average cost to rescue a dog is probably about 500 to 700 euros, depending on the condition of the dog and where it needs to go. And what that pays for is its vet treatments, its residential fees with a foster, and then its transport fees to wherever it goes. Now, there are quite a few very generous people who have been helping us out, but due to changing circumstances, a lot of those donations have started drying up. So that's kind of why I'm sending out this plea to the people who are watching this video. If any of you care for dogs, if any of you are kind of passionate about that sort of thing, and if you have anything, even if it's a penny or a pound, a cent or a dollar, anything, absolutely anything helps. So that's it really. That's kind of just what I want to talk about there, and just want to say thank you. And again, I hope that you've enjoyed the videos that I do here, and hopefully there'll be more following soon. So this is Smudge saying thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.